Bada boom. I think we should be good. All right.
All right.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. It's been a couple of weeks since we did this.
All right.
So it is awesome. Oh,
All right.
it is awesome to have you guys here. Hey, John, how you doing? Oh, by the way, I saw your Patreon request and the chat, the overall chat for the good evening community is up and running on Patreon. So that's there for everyone to enjoy. I hope you like that. I really liked your idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, obviously. Yeah. So that's up and running. Yeah, something that I have been thinking about for a little bit is creating like a good evening. I don't know, like a good evening channel empire, let's say. The idea of it would be something along the lines of I would have good evening, like music reaction, things like that, and then I would transition into things for either games or storytelling. At some point down the line, something that really piques my curiosity is just a vlog channel, perhaps. Just good evening traveling or whatever. Or travel at dusk, maybe. Or maybe become a Disney vlogger. That would be interesting. Not that I think that all of these channels would be popular by any means, but just things that have piqued my curiosity and things that I find to be I think would be a lot of fun to film and create. Oh, awesome. Thank you for that, John. Thank you for chatting in the community. But yeah, those are some of the ideas that I've been thinking about. Just creating, maybe changing the name of this channel to Good Evening Music or Music at Dusk. Yeah, I made sure that pictures were also included in the chat. I wanted to make it more of a fun experience, as much as I could anyway. But yeah, some music ideas, maybe vlogging at some point in the future. Who knows? Who knows where it'll go? I haven't gone hiking in a long time, and I would love the opportunity to do more of that, especially if I can not necessarily... Well, hold on. Ideas are flowing. What if I just did long hikes in nature and just told stories? Or I could just have the camera focus on nature itself and not talk and just enjoy the sounds of nature. Well, I don't know. I think there are plenty of videos that do that well. Maybe I would just tell stories while walking. Huh. I don't know. I'll think about it. You're getting interrupted in a wait state. Why is that the case? I'm not getting anything on my end. Oh, okay. Cool. I'm glad that it's not a serious problem. But yeah, so we'll see what happens later on down the line, just in terms of where the channel is growing. I am in talks with a couple of different YouTubers, and we'll see if any content comes out of that or if it's just me learning from them. But overall, things are moving progressively in a pretty good direction, I like to think. Patreon is very slow, but it's gradual, which is very important, and I'm thrilled about that. I was looking at my Gabriel Enrique video, and this is one of the longer videos that I've had to edit, and I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of things that I don't like about it. Not just the video itself, but just because of the way it's structured, because I do both the filming of the Patreon version and the YouTube version in the same filming session. It's the same video. I just have to cut a lot of it out for YouTube. And I have a lot of thoughts that I say in the Patreon version that won't make any sense if I leave it out for the YouTube version. So I end up repeating myself a lot if you were to see the Patreon version. And I don't know. I don't think it turns out that good. Let me rephrase that. I do not think it turned out good enough to post. And I am trying to work with some of the footage and figure all of it out, but it's pretty weird. Like, overall, there's only so many praises that I can give him throughout the video, and I keep trying to reestablish the things that I actually enjoyed, but the video itself is just, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. Like, there's a lot of criticisms. It's all constructive, and it all comes from a very genuine place. But there's a lot of repetition for those watching it on Patreon, and for those watching it on YouTube, it's going to look a little weird. So I'm going to do my best to work with it for a little while. It might be longer than next week, though, just because there is so much content for it, and I have to piece it together and rearrange some things to make the transitions themselves a lot smoother, so it is going to take a minute. But with all of that said, I am working on, or rather, I finished editing a video by Beat Pella House, which is their last video. It's not all of them. I think it's Wing, Hellcat, and Hiss that did a really solid beat recently, and I really digged it. So I'm gonna put that out at the beginning of next week. I've been doing a ton of filming for my highest tier on Patreon, and even though there's not a bunch of people, and by a bunch of people I mean even though there's nobody in that tier, eventually there will be, and I want to make sure that there's enough content to make that tier worth it. So I've been filming and editing a lot for that tier. This weekend I'm going to be doing a lot of filming for my middle tier, and then I'm just going to make sure that everything is going to be silky smooth for YouTube in the upcoming week. So hopefully everything turns out really well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to making more content and to having a good time and just growing, keeping the channel awesome, authentic, genuine, all of that good stuff. I am hoping to put out more home free and pentatonics reactions soon, now that the update to the channel has been instilled. So hopefully everything will work out fine. Are you sure you are okay? And hi. Well, hello, Jessica. And I'm not quite sure what you mean, if I'm okay. What inflection does that question have? I'm not quite sure. I mean, this morning was quite a lovely morning. I had a pleasant dream. I made myself a very nice and toasty cup of coffee, and I may have put a little bit too much cream in it, but, you know, it was still really nice. I had a pretty easy flow into the day today. I mean, the week itself has been pretty stressful, and I'm exhausted, for sure. But, yeah, I mean, as of this morning, I'm feeling pretty okay. Like, don't get me wrong, the week has still caught up to me, and I'm still tired. But, yeah, overall, I'm doing fine. But thank you for asking. Yeah, I've also been working out pretty well this week, so that's been making me feel pretty good too. You just seemed a bit down, maybe, or unsure. I could be reading it wrong. Well, I think that's... maybe it's just a bit tired. Well, it is tiredness for sure, and I am a little frustrated from my Gabriel video. It's really tough trying to finagle all of the elements about it and trying to make it cohesive for both YouTube and Patreon. And I'm just really... I'm really trying. Like, I would love to put out that video at some point, but just, at least from the way it looks right now, it's really rough. It's a really rough sketch of a video. And it's not that I'm necessarily afraid to put it out to the world, even though the majority of it is a lot of criticism. And again, the criticism comes from a good place. It's there to be constructive, not intended to be malicious or anything, and keeping in mind that most of it is subjective, with a lot of... not a lot of... well, actually, no, there is a fair amount of objective technical things that I comment on as well. But yeah, it just in terms of how I filmed it and how much content there is, being able to finagle with it has been very stressful, especially since this is a video I really don't want to screw up, because I already hear a lot of people being heavily critical of me. Like, I'm getting flashbacks to the first time I ever criticized Dimash, and I'm trying to use a little bit more of my presentation skills, my newfound presentation skills from filming, to convey my messages and ideas better, more thoughtfully. And it's quite a challenge. And with everything that's been happening on top of And for those that don't know, I'm also putting in a ton of time in job applications for varying places, mainly because YouTube and Patreon and my voice studio are all good sources of income, but it doesn't subsidize everything. And it would be in my best interest to, on top of my full-time job doing this, get another full-time job. Because I've worked multiple full-time jobs in the past, and it's very taxing, sure, but it keeps me on my feet. But I've always had a strong need and a strong overall desire as well to be independent, and I've always had a certain recalcitrance towards authority and towards people making decisions over me and things like that. So to be my own free person, financially free, and as long as all of my basic necessities are met, I would love to be able to utilize any additional income and just go out into the world and engage with it as much as possible. And the stress of getting rejected for months has been piling, for sure. And the stress of trying to make YouTube like, obviously YouTube is my full-time job right now, but because I'm putting in so much time and effort into it, but it's and it did grow very quickly in the beginning, and it still is growing, but it's I'm still nowhere near it being able to fully subsidize my income, and it's rough. It's rough right now, but I'm making it happen, and I'm very fortunate to have people in my life who love, support, and care about me. So it's a give and take. I'm very fortunate, but it's also not. I'm also not meeting a certain level of expectation of myself, which is probably where that disheartening vibe comes from. But overall, I'm still keeping a positive attitude about it. I'm still very fortunate, very grateful, very privileged in those ways. So I'm keeping my head held high, and I'm taking it one step at a time, moving forward, things like that. Sounds like Dan Vask. Did Dan have a similar struggle? I'm not quite sure. Well, in the last 4 years, I lost my husband to cancer, lost my home, moved halfway across the world back to my hometown, so I get being tired of not meeting the expectations we have for ourselves. I lost my husband to cancer, lost my home, moved halfway across the world. That sounds excruciating. My condolences. Oh my goodness. I think about often, especially when I feel down, the relationships that I have with people. And I see a lot of people who are capable of making friends instantly and have a myriad of friends. And, like, I have 5 friends, or 5 people that I actually consider friends. And one of them means everything to me. I communicate with her often, and she's the only person that I can really give my honest thoughts about the world to, and know that she isn't judging me, and know that when I convey my thoughts, that she knows that it comes from a good place, even if they're presented in a way that might sound malicious or ill-intended. And she's very good at interpreting what it is that I'm saying and creating very meaningful conversation from it. she rounds me out very well, and in the idea that I think very deeply about the world, but I'm very awkward when I engage with it, where she's definitely someone who lives more in the moment and is capable of understanding my deep perspective about the world, and I make her think more deeply about the world as well. So I help her in that way, but she definitely helps me engage with the world in a way that isn't so uncomfortable looking. And this is the first time I've ever felt like this is a person who, regardless of whatever happens in our lives, we know that unless something unexpectedly tragic happens, that we're committed to being a part of each other's lives. And I don't think about this often, but from time to time, I think about that unexpected tragedy, and it pains me to my core. But I have experienced a time where, in my life, where my girlfriend at the time was the absolute love of my life, and when she ended up hurting and betraying me, I completely broke down. I was a shell. And so but I'm not going to act like I know what it's like to lose someone to a devastating illness by any means. But the message that I'm trying to convey more of is, as much as I preach about wanting to be independent and being happy just experiencing life myself, the absolute value that other people can bring in, even if it's just for moments in time, is invaluable. It's priceless. And I very much sympathize with your struggle there. So my condolences to you again, and that's really tragic. But at the same time, incredible kudos to you, incredible props to you for being able to withstand that kind of blow and to keep your head held high and to keep moving forward, even though you're obviously exhausted from that. Anybody would be. In times like these, when I was experiencing real lows, my dad came up to me and he showed me this clip from, I think it was one of the Rocky movies, and he was saying, Sylvester Stallone said something along the lines of, yeah, life's gonna hurt. Life's going to beat you to your knees, and life will keep beating you to your knees and keep you there if you let it. But that's what life is. Life is getting back up again. You got to go out there and show your worth. You got to go out there and be willing to take the hits, because life is not going to cater to any one individual, and it's going to be extremely unfair. Especially if you're the one living it, it might seem especially unfair to you. And when I think about that, it gives me confidence to think, something I really do love about storytelling is it introduced me to so many characters that the stories themselves display a character that have undergone tremendous pain and suffering. And I'm not just talking about fictitious characters. I'm talking about real people. A really great example of this would be Viktor Frankl, who was, I believe he was a philanthropist or a philosopher, and a medical doctor. But even beyond that, he survived Auschwitz, and a lot of his quotes on understanding what it means to go through suffering, I believe him. Absolutely. And when I think about things like that, about what it means to endure suffering and still come out of that suffering not jaded, not bitter against the world, but still have the audacity to go out into the world and show kindness, show compassion and altruism, but having a deep sense of how cruel the world can be, and still choosing to use and utilize the strength you've been given from those opportunities and go out into the world and execute greatness with a smile on your face. To me, that is the peak. I was very fortunate to have a person in my life before he passed that exemplified that. And I see those traits in people around me as well. Only they're not as predominant. They leak out in very specific instances. But to engage with somebody in life who lives that philosophy, that's such a rarity. It's such a rarity, and it moves me profoundly. Dan can work with others, but not for others. Can't stand being controlled. Yeah, I get that. I did all of it with my son in tow. I have found very few people I thought were true friends really are. I have lost a lot of people along the way. It's important to have that person in your life. I have that one as well. I'm thrilled for you, Jessica. That's wonderful. Thank you. I get up every day and remember the good times. I remember I have my son. I was lucky. I got 8 years with the love of my life. A lot of people never even get that. That's true. Like, this is, I don't even know if I should say this or not. I'll say it just to provide a little bit more clarity and context. A lot of people view relationships as, and when I say relationships, I'm specifically targeting romantic relationships. A lot of people may view romantic relationships as, if you're not dating them in order to marry them, then you're just wasting their time. And originally I fell under that mindset, but then I started dating my current partner, who is that best friend that I was mentioning. And I primarily refer to her as my best friend, mainly because all of the value in our dynamic, in our relationship, even without the romance, just in our relationship as people, all of the value lies in our friendship. The way that we communicate, the way that we're honest with each other, the way that we spend time with each other and engage with each other, the things we do together, all of these things are things best friends would do. As a matter of fact, it's more rare for us to even engage in intimate activities just because there's no expectation of it. We're very content and satisfied just being in each other's company and talking with each other. But it's because of this deep and profound love that we have for each other that we also choose to be romantic with each other. But at the end of the day, in terms of romance, both of us exist on polar opposite ends, where she wants very specific things out of a romantic relationship, and I want very specific things out of a romantic relationship, that regardless of communication, we can't ultimately provide for each other. But the important thing is that both of us ultimately want each other to find happiness within romance, should it be important for us to do so. And the entire course of my relationship with her has been extremely complex since essentially we first met. And we've known each other for, at this point, I want to say 11 or 12 years. And throughout all of the strife, bitterness, and pain and frustration that we've gone through, we've had so many incredible, beautiful qualities and experiences that I wouldn't trade for anything. And when I think about these really beautiful moments, these really beautiful human connections, I recognize that it's not only possible to have these with other people, but just the fact that it exists at all is so powerful to me. Because especially in this age of social media where everything is doom and gloom, it's the end is near kind of thing, or it's all of this brainwashing and it's all of this misinformation and it's all of this and that. To know that there are people who don't get caught up in that and ultimately just live their life in a way that's still genuine and authentic to them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're right about everything. I'm not right about everything. But it comes to the point of what does it mean to live happily as a person, as a human being? And I think that definition changes depending on the person, but I've seen a lot of varying elements of wisdom spoken about this. I actually have a quote on one of my whiteboards back here, which I erased for other things, but it was a 14th century Japanese writer, I believe. And I forgot the quote itself, but it was essentially saying, life without death is like saying that life would still have the ability to move us, which it wouldn't, because death adds a certain beauty to life. Knowing that it is not limitless, knowing that anything can happen at any time, or any tragic event can happen at any time, that gives you all the more reason to go out into the world and engage with the things that are truly beautiful. I remember when I was still living at my parents' place, they live up on a big hill, so oftentimes in the evening, and this is actually part of the inspiration for Good Evening Stories, actually, the name. I would go out 30 minutes before sunset. I would go to the top of the hill, and at the top of the hill, you can overlook the entire valley. And sometimes the sunsets were just gorgeous. But overall, almost every single sunset I experienced was gorgeous, aside from the time that there were obviously fires getting in the way. But even then, just being able to sit there and watch the sunset, be surrounded by grass and flowers and different colors and different shapes. And then I would just lie there for over an hour, just looking over at the sunset, looking up at the sky, feeling the grass, the dirt under me, it moves me. It touches me. And to have those kinds of experiences, recognizing that, yes, the world itself can be very cruel, the people within the world can be cruel, nature itself can be cruel, and each of us has to live up to not just our own expectations, but survive against the seemingly endless thrashing of suffering. But I think that's what makes showing compassion to others that much more impactful. It's not just the idea that everybody's going through something and, you know, and you should show compassion because you don't know what they're going through, where that there is truth to that. But at the same time, it's, if you actually think about the meaning of that and start thinking about how terribly devastated someone might be because of recent, or not, maybe not even recent, but just painful events that have long affected them over years, and they still go out and show kindness. Think about what that kindness might actually mean, because that to me is true goodness in humanity, where despite all of the atrocious, terrible things people are capable of, all humans are capable of terrible and atrocious things, but to that same end, all humans are capable of producing some of the greatest goods. And that goes to also say some really terrible people are capable of producing some really great things, and some really great people are capable of producing some really terrible things. And there's a lot of nuance and a lot of complexity that goes into people. Like, if there was a person who cheated on their partner, is that person going to be a terrible person for all time? You know, they could be, but that one event doesn't define all of the nuance and beauty about them. Very similar to, does one act of genuine righteousness define their righteousness for the rest of their life? What if they go off and start doing terrible things? You know, there are many roads that so many people can take, and it's so important and valuable to be able to constantly go out into the world and do what you genuinely believe is the right thing. And doing that is not only incredibly arduous and exhausting, but it's very, very rare that I find that people actually go out and do that. And I'm not talking about necessarily being a righteous, like, creature of all of humanity or anything like that, but just going out and genuinely doing the right thing at all times, or what you genuinely believe is the right thing, even if it means going out of your way, even if it means putting yourself at a disadvantage for other things, or you're going to be late to something that's important. These qualities are very difficult to come by in people, and to find really beautiful elements in people like that, to be able to step outside of ourselves and actually look at how good people can be, it gives me a lot of hope for the future. I'm right about everything. Just ask my son. That's hysterical. Okay. Soapbox rant over. I was reading some of my clips just now. Or not my clips, my quotes. The ones that I saved on these boards over here. You can't see them, they're out of frame, but a couple of them are also by Viktor Frankl. A few of them are by a YouTuber that I really look up to. One of them is by Anton Chekhov, Robert Greene, Nietzsche. Some really Napoleon. A very diverse group of people, I'd say. But all with their own value systems, ethics, morals, principles, and wisdom. And that's something else that I can get on another soapbox for. It's this idea that if there's a person who absolutely rubs you the wrong way, who is so irritating, or their character traits and their actions display ill intent and are not just annoying but actually malicious or cruel or imperious, sanctimonious, are they completely devoid of imparting valuable wisdom that can help others get out of hard situations? Or that are they incapable of truly comforting others? Are they capable of providing a real good in times of necessity? And I feel like we live in such a world where we're not only quick to judge and to categorize, but I find that one of the most common hypocritical ideas is people are capable of change, but not people that I hate kind of mentality. Where if I hate somebody because they have wronged me, I will forever hate them because they have not only wronged me, but because they have wronged me in such a terrible and egregious way, they are no longer capable of doing any good. It's this idea that if a person does something truly terrible to you, like takes away the only joy outside of yourself that you had in your life, does that person deserve death? Does that person deserve to rot in prison forever? It obviously depends on what it is they did, how it is they feel about it, what the whole situation was, what the story of it was. There's a lot of nuance that goes into it aside from them just directly harming you. But going beyond that, it's this idea of if a person actually does wrong you in some capacity, especially a capacity that's really, really painful, does that mean that they, like, if you had the power in your hands and you were to think about it as pragmatically as possible, is it the right thing to do to completely destroy their life because they've destroyed yours? Is that righteous retribution? Or do you think there's a possibility that there's hope for them to be better and to contribute to the world in a way that's beautiful? I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody. I'm not saying this is the case for most people. But I think we're very quick to call out people's faults, especially faults that are most present in ourselves, but lash out against other people for committing to. And destroy them. I think that's the pith of something like cancel culture, where they say or do something politically incorrect, or say or do something that strikes you as being very wrong in the moment, and then you say, I don't like this, this makes me feel uncomfortable, they should no longer be allowed to have this, 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 and this, or they should have all of these things taken away, or whatever the case is. And it's just things to think about. I'm not saying whether or not there's the right or wrong thing, because again, there's a ton of nuance that goes into these types of situations. But, you know, as human beings, we are emotional creatures. We are also irrational creatures. I've mentioned in past live streams and videos that there was a book I read recently called The Righteous Mind by author Jonathan Haidt. And he is a very well-traveled individual. And he went out into the world and did tons of research about varying cultures and how it compares to, say, North American culture. He went out into the world and compared liberal mindsets versus conservative mindsets, where the value systems lie, where ethics and morals come into play. He went out into the world and questioned and engaged in experiments to see how people react to certain moral questions or dilemmas that are very, very difficult to immediately categorize. You actually have to sit down and ask yourself on a true moral basis, is this the right or wrong thing to do? And I'm not going to talk about some of those experiments because they can get really intense in terms of moral questioning. But the point that I bring this up is because there is a ton of nuance, and there are ways to bridge the gaps between people that are seemingly incomprehensible. When I had my heart ripped out from me and I was this empty shell for like 10 months. One of the most beautiful things about this book is the fact that it highlights the fact that humans are irrational at times when we're inundated with any particular emotion. Any emotion, it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that we would define to be negative. And it's this idea of the rider and the horse. But instead of a horse, it's an elephant. And the elephant reflects your emotional state, and the rider, you, the person, your pragmatic mind, reflects, your pragmatic mind, your mental state. And the elephant is the motivation. It's the thing that actually causes you to take action in the world. And the rider is the person guiding the elephant, doing its best to create a path that the elephant can traverse down with as few obstacles in their way. And it's challenging. It's challenging trying to take any kind of control away from the elephant, or any kind of control away from your emotional self. So oftentimes we not only act based out of emotion, but our actions are without any rider's intervention. There's no real pragmatism within our actions. It's solely based in what the elephant not only is committing to, but in what the elephant itself wants. And it's very difficult to train the elephant and to reel the elephant in to be able to navigate our emotions. For me, using that as an example for me personally, it's this idea of when I was in that complete destroyed mental state, I was literally lying under my bed with my head firmly planted in the floor for hours. I was an actual shell. Not literally, but you get what I'm saying. I was useless during that time. I couldn't do anything. I woke up miserable. The day I was miserable. Nighttime I was miserable. Sleeping was miserable. Everything was miserable. That I ultimately created for myself. And it eventually just came to the point where I sat down and reflected and started saying, well, I never want to be in this mental state again. I never want to be in this emotional state again. What do I have control over? I don't have control over other people's actions. Okay, so that's out of the line. I don't have control over the world around me. Great. I do have control over my actions. Maybe not my feelings, because my emotions just happen as they do. But I can control how I think about things. So I started saying, okay, when my girlfriend at the time, who was essentially my rival at the end of our relationship, she started just, at the very end of everything, she started really jamming into my insecurities. So one of those was I wasn't academically smart. I spent all of my time in music that I didn't do a lot of reading outside of music. So, and my vocabulary was very limited. So I started reading a lot more. I started memorizing vocabulary words. Since then, I've learned over 200 new words and have been trying to incorporate them more into my daily speech. There are many that I don't use because I don't have the context necessary to use them. But I at least understand them when I come across them in a book, which is enough. And it's just varying things like that. And the more that I read and the more that I educate myself, the more that I learn other people's perspectives, the easier it is for me to engage with anybody in conversation. It gets me a little bit more out of my introverted self and makes it easier for me to communicate with others. I remember recently there was a man who I never thought that I could engage in a full-on philosophical conversation with. He was studying to become a lawyer, and he made the statement that power corrupts people and money corrupts people. And I made the case by saying, I think that that's an interesting view. I'm interested to hear how you elaborate and expand upon that. And I offered my view as well after he did by saying, I don't think power and money corrupts people. I think it makes them more of who they already are, that just given the opportunity to utilize power and money. And, you know, I hear a lot of, like, an example of this could be a lot of people might say, oh, if I had Bill Gates, Elon Musk's level of wealth, you know, I would donate all of it to make sure everybody in the world was well taken care of. But at the same time, would you not use your own money to go off and subsidize your own ventures? Would you not want to try to create that most fulfilling and exciting and enriching life possible for yourself? I feel like most people would end up succumbing to that. And it doesn't necessarily mean to say that that's right or wrong by any means. But everybody has their own self-interest in mind before making critical decisions. And it's just examples like this that I really conceptualize, you know, it's very easy to paint someone into a box of evil or of righteousness, but we're all, at the end of the day, just human beings. We all serve our self-interest. We all serve our own emotional selves. But for me personally, I've taken it upon myself to, after I actually built myself back up again from being a shell, I said, okay, I never want to be this compromised again. In order to do that, I need to find real self-acceptance. I can't put all of my eggs in one basket and put all of my happiness into another person. I need to make myself happy first. Okay. I focused on myself throughout that. I started rebuilding relationships with people. That gave me a tremendous sense of value for myself. And then after that, I was able to move on from that and start saying, I think I'm ready to start engaging in relationships in a way that's even more than just friendships, but maybe even into romance. And that's when I went to my best friend and we talked about it and we engaged with that. And here we are 2 years later, you know. And ultimately, I came to the point of, I want to be able to communicate with people of all types of ethics and principles, values, morals. Everybody would have, and all of these people, all of these cultures would all have varying principles, ethics, morals, etc. And I want to be able to engage with them in a way that's not judgmental, in a way that's very rich and authentic and is open to their worldview, while also being able to present mine and bounce ideas off of each other, understand how it is that they came to their present beliefs and their present understanding of the world and of reality, and how it is that I can take the wisdom that they've gained throughout their life that only they could have experienced and incorporate that wisdom and knowledge into my life in a way that makes sense for me and transpose that wisdom in a way that is actionable, let's say. Soapbox rant over. Just to let you know, it was your voice play reactions that brought me here. Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, voice play is wonderful. I hope, cancel culture is dying out. Things like that are cynical, very popular a few years ago, dying out now. I think the cancel culture ended up finding so much offensive. Yes, I agree to that. They ended up canceling each other out. I'm finding people more kind and helpful lately. I am as well, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. Esh. How was your day today? Well, in regards to specifically today has been great. Thank you for asking. I woke up, had a lovely dream, and my dream was just about me and my best friend drinking a cup of coffee together, enjoying each other's company. Made me so happy. And then I woke up this morning, actually made myself a cup of coffee, put a little bit too much cream in it, but it's fine. It's still very yummy, and had a very slow groove into the day, and it has been bliss. And on top of that, my sleep schedule has been all over the place recently, so it felt really, really good waking up early this morning. I was never an early morning person ever in my life, but the last 3 years, I started waking up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning. And 4 is a little bit early. 5 is a little bit early. 5:30 was more comfortable. 6 was really good. But 5:36, I was really happy waking up around because I got so much done throughout the day. And this morning, because I've been waking up progressively more around 8:30 or 9, I woke up today at 7. That felt really good. And I'm planning on waking up at 6 tomorrow. And I'm sure that's going to be a really good feeling. But overall, smooth transition into the day. Got a lot of work done, a lot of editing done, sent out a few applications, just doing my thing. Yeah. um, but yeah. But we have rounded out to an hour. That's awesome. That's a lot of talking. Also, in this past week, we hit 11,000 subscribers, which I think is pretty nifty. Subscriber count doesn't necessarily amount to the amount of revenue that I make through the channel, but it gives me more opportunity to reach out to more people, which I think is pretty nice. So the fact that over 11,000 people enjoy this type of content to some degree, I think is pretty nifty. I'm pretty excited about that. My facial hair is finally looking good. Finally? What do you mean? Did it not look good? No, the thing is that my I trim my facial hair often. It's just it grows very quickly, and when I record videos, by that my beard doesn't grow down, it grows out. It's a very it's a very Jewish beard that just kind of puffs out like a bush. So if I don't essentially trim it every day, it's always like curling in on itself, and it's kind of a nightmare to manage. But I also got a haircut recently, so there's a nice blend in from my hairline into my beard, which is nice too. No. Well, I think it does. So, difference of opinion. It's fine. I just got the 11,000 actually happened. I want to say yesterday or 2 days ago, something like that. But yeah, just got VoicePlay's newest CD. That's awesome. Got mine 2 days. Cool. Yeah. That's awesome, guys. Yeah, VoicePlay is criminally underrated, in my opinion. Criminally. I do wish that they collaborated with beatboxers more, though. Because they usually collaborate with really wonderful vocalists, and Lane is a great beatboxer, but I would love more diversity in their beatboxing. I'm very well familiar with Lane's sounds and his repertoire of sounds out of all of the videos that they've done so far. Yeah. Like, there was, when I was in university, in my university's a cappella group, one of them anyway, I went to a concert in the University of California, Santa Barbara. And over there was an a cappella group called Brothers from Other Mothers, or BFOM. And they had 3 different beatboxers in their group, each specializing in one varying aspect of beatbox. One was incredible with his drum and bass, another was incredible with synth sounds and dubstep, and another was really incredible with your everyday sound. And by everyday sound, I mean he could produce fully for any kind of situation. Like, if you guys have ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway and have seen the game with Colin and Ryan sound effects, where Colin is just acting everything out that Ryan is making through the microphone, just different sounds and effects. That's what this guy did. The sound of a can opening, water running, the electric grinders, or the morning routine, just everything was so crisp in its sound effect and design. I was completely dazzled by it. It was wonderful. They have 3 Grammy considerations at the moment. All the more reason why they're criminally underrated. Like, I don't know how many subscribers Pentatonics has, but it is exponentially higher than Voice Plays, and that drives me nuts. Because, yeah, you know, Pentatonics has a lot of really great arrangements and compositions for their group, and their voices are dazzling, and the range of the group as a whole is outstanding. And on top of it, they can emotionally connect with their audience, which I think is wonderful. But Voice Play gets into makeup and costumes, like, full on, and fully act out stuff, and are so engaging in their storytelling. I think that's just because I heavily value storytelling in music. But, man, dude, I wish they got more success. They are so much fun to watch. About 10 times higher. Yeah, like... like, it drives me nuts, man. I wish they had more success. But they are successful, so I give them credit for being as good as they are. But with that said, ladies and gents, it's been a little over an hour, and I mentioned this several live streams ago that I wanted to try to keep these live streams at around an hour. I've just been failing at that these last few live streams. But I'm gonna call it here. And yeah, this is gonna be it. Thank you guys so much for being here. This has been a deeper conversation than I was expecting for today, to be honest. But it was wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your evening. This has been very enriching. And yeah, of course. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening, is all I want to say. Thank you guys so much for being here, and have a good rest of your night, guys.